I helped the president's daughter in the bathtub. It was the best thing that could have happened. Jaden was an ordinary guy in his early 20s, just a regular office worker. But his appearance was anything but ordinary, thanks to a large scar that ran from his left temple to his eyebrow. He'd gotten it in a car accident when he was little, and it often made people think he had a shady past. The scar had been a constant source of struggle for him. In school, classmates avoided him, and bullies picked on him. As an adult, job hunting was a nightmare. The scar made his first impression terrible, and most interviewers would sigh and say, well. He always dreamed of being a salesman, using his words and passion to win contracts. But his scar seemed to be a barrier, making him appear untrustworthy. Deals that other salesmen closed would fail because of him, causing losses for the company. Despite his struggles, Jaden eventually landed a job as an ordinary office worker. When he received the notification, he couldn't believe his eyes. He double-checked it several times, his hands shaking with excitement. "Mom, look. It seems like I've been offered a job," he exclaimed. "Really? That's wonderful. We should celebrate with a feast tonight," his mother replied. "But it might be a mistake, huh?" Jaden worried. "A mistake? I don't know. Could you check it with me?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. He involved his family in confirming the notification, needing a third party's opinion to ensure it wasn't an error. When he finally believed it was real, his confusion and doubt turned into pure joy. He instinctively made a fist pump in triumph, a slightly embarrassing episode in retrospect, but it was such a joyful moment. He felt grateful to the company that hired him and vowed to work harder than anyone else. However, even though he successfully joined the company, the scar remained a disadvantage. Despite landing the sales position he'd longed for, he wasn't given any actual sales work. His job was purely behind the scenes, assisting his senior and peer sales colleagues by gathering, compiling, and analyzing information about client companies. Initially, Jaden was frustrated. He thought, this wasn't what I signed up for. He considered quitting, but the thought of job hunting again filled him with dread. He decided to work his hardest for the company, switching his focus to supporting the sales team as an assistant. After 2 years, his boss trusted him enough to say, "Leave it to him, he'll handle it." Jaden still hadn't been given any sales responsibilities or taken on client visits, but he continued to focus on his office work. He started finding fulfillment in his job and grew attached to it. He'd enjoy chatting with his colleagues, though at first, no one talked to him. The sales department had a high turnover rate, and he was always quietly working at his desk. He understood that people might be scared to talk to someone with a big scar like his. Even he would be scared if someone with a face like his talked to him. He proactively communicated with his colleagues to avoid scaring them, being gentle and always smiling brightly. Thanks to his efforts, he could now enjoy conversations just like ordinary people. Sometimes he got self-conscious about the stares directed at him and listened in on conversations out of anxiety, but he was relieved that he didn't seem to scare anyone. In fact, the contrast between his appearance and his serious, kind personality had made him popular among the female employees. His reputation had even spread beyond the sales department. Rumors circulated about him having a girlfriend, which was extremely embarrassing since he'd never had one in his life. He couldn't find an opportunity to clear up the misunderstanding. He'd never even liked someone, let alone had a girlfriend. With his looks, it was hard enough as it was. He'd given up on romance and was living a life without it. Of course, he had no romantic feelings for Remy, the most beautiful woman in the company. Julia was a female employee assigned to the same sales department as him. She was not only beautiful but also competent at her job, truly embodying both beauty and brains. On top of that, she was the daughter of the company's CEO. Her good personality drew people to her, and she'd been popular since she was assigned to the department. Male employees from various departments and even clients frequently approached her. Jaden, whose work was mostly within the department, had encountered these scenes countless times. Seeing it so often, even someone like him who had nothing to do with it found it annoying. If he felt this way, he was sure she must feel the same, given that she kept rejecting them. He genuinely admired how she handled it without showing any sign of frustration. Apparently, it was the CEO's intention for her to work as a regular employee despite being his daughter. Having been raised with great care, she might be a bit naive about the world, and her father wanted her to learn how society works from scratch. Julia had the title of the CEO's daughter, beauty, high communication skills, and a strong enthusiasm for her work. People around her seemed to be motivated and supportive, possibly influenced by her passion. For someone in sales, she had the perfect status. Jaden couldn't help feeling that her father, as a company executive, had ulterior motives in assigning her to this department beyond just thinking of her well-being. She was the complete opposite of him. Seeing someone like her who was perfect for sales made him feel pathetic and jealous of his own job as a sales assistant, which he had grown to love and accept. He felt a strong sense of disgust at these feelings, so he hardly ever spoke to her. However, Julie always greeted him with an innocent smile at least once a day. "Hey, good job today," she'd say. Even though he didn't have much to say, she always greeted him like this. Her ability to treat everyone equally was probably one of the reasons she was so popular. "Good job, Miss Remy," he'd respond as usual. "I've told you, just call me Remy." "You're the only one who still adds Miss," she'd say. "Then why don't you call me Jadeny too?" she'd ask. "What? I can't do that. You're my senior after all," he'd reply. "Right then, I'll keep calling you Miss Remy. You're so mean," she'd pout. Her pouty face and yapping made her look like a puppy. "By the way, how about we finally have lunch together today?" she asked shyly. She didn't ask him every day, but she did regularly invite him to lunch. "Oh, sorry, I still have work to finish, so I can't take a long break," he'd say, using the same excuse every time. It's always the same excuse. Why do you always turn me down with the same words? At least prepare some new excuses if you're going to turn me down. Or better yet, don't turn me down at all. I'm inviting you here," she'd say. From his perspective, he turned her down enough times that she should have gotten the hint. "Okay, got it. So finally, next time I turn you down, I'll have a wider variety of excuses ready," he'd say, not meaning it. Leaving her there, he'd go off to have his lunch. Being invited to lunch by a beautiful and popular CEO's daughter didn't feel bad at all. Any other guy might think, "Does she like me?" But Jaden knew that wasn't the case. At work, they were just colleagues. He understood that she probably just wanted to get to know him better or hadn't talked to him much before. Still, some might be okay with her invitations, thinking that deepening the relationship might lead to something more. But Jaden didn't want that with her or any woman. If it did happen, she'd end up leaving him for another guy anyway, given his scar. Maybe he was afraid of being abandoned if he got his hopes up. Even though he had no experience in love, he created reasons to avoid romance, which had made his personality quite twisted. Thinking about that, he was on his way to lunch when he overheard voices as he passed the break room. It seemed like the guys who had overheard the earlier conversation were taking a coffee break. Julia was trying to invite someone to lunch again. "Yeah. Was it Jaden she was asking?" One of them said. "That's right. I really don't get what she sees in that rough-looking guy. He looks like someone from the underworld," another one said. "No clue. If I were Jaden, I'd be grateful and go every day," a third one said. "Me too. So why does he keep rejecting her?" one of them asked. "Sure, Julia keeps asking, but Jaden keeps refusing. Maybe he's just embarrassed," another one said. "He can't be trying to play it cool, right?" one of them questioned. "Who knows? But Julie's kind to everyone. They both do their jobs well. So she's probably just trying to talk shop. Plus, it's a perfect match." Remy, who's in high demand in sales, and Jaden, who has no sales experience, another one said. "Wow, that's harsh," one of them said. "What? I can't think of a better way to put it. Well, she's good at her job and has a great personality. It's not surprising even if the boss's son would approach her. It wasn't worth eavesdropping on after all." Jaden listened out of curiosity, but it felt like a waste of time. He left with that unpleasant feeling. After lunch, when he got back to the department, he saw a crowd around the bulletin board with only 5 minutes left of lunch break. He wondered what everyone was so leisurely looking at. He joined the crowd and saw a notice he'd never seen before. The paper said, "Company trip." From the crowd, he heard conversations. "Come to think of it, it's that time of year again," one said. "I completely forgot. We haven't had these company events for the past few years due to the pandemic," another said. "The company's trips are always well planned and fun," another voice said. "Hey Remy, it's a company trip," someone called out. Everyone's eyes turned to the voice calling her name. As usual, Julia was chatting with several guys. They seemed excited about the notice for the company trip, their glances occasionally flickering towards Remy. Considering Remy's personality, she would probably enjoy this event to the fullest. But when it came to her, her expression didn't seem that happy, or rather, she looked a bit confused. However, that expression lasted only for a moment. Soon she was cheerfully joining in with the surrounding guys. Yay, hot springs. Remy, are you going to join? Come to think of it, you haven't participated before, right? One of the guys asked. Yeah. I usually have a family gathering around this time, Julia replied. As expected of the CEO's daughter, one of the guys said. Being the CEO's daughter has nothing to do with it, another guy said. Everyone laughed. As they were laughing, Julia noticed Jaden's gaze, and their eyes met. He felt awkward and quickly looked away, pretending to be engrossed in the details of the company trip while sweating nervously. But this year, I think I might go, Julia said, louder than before. She seemed to be saying it to someone. Then lunch break ended, and everyone started their afternoon tasks. Jaden also turned to his desk and began his usual afternoon work. While working, he couldn't help but wonder what that momentary look of confusion on her face was about. But then he realized he was overthinking every little thing she did, and he snapped back to focus on his work for the afternoon. Days passed without any particular changes, and the day of the company trip arrived. Honestly, if it weren't for the company obligations, Jaden wouldn't want to go on this trip at all. He'd always disliked crowded places, and as a child, he often got sick from being in large crowds. Since becoming an adult, it had gotten a bit better, but he still didn't like crowded places. But he attended these events as part of his job, to fit in with the company. Someone like him needed to make an effort to blend in to have good relationships at work. It wasn't really the right mindset to attend these events, but without it, he wouldn't be able to show his usual self to other employees. He always participated in company trips with a sense of duty, but seeing his colleagues in a different light during these trips had always been enjoyable. He wondered if he would enjoy it the same way this year. With that in mind, he decided to enjoy the company trip. The bus carrying them headed straight to the hotel. This time, their company trip took them to a luxurious hotel that could host a grand banquet, and everyone was dazzled by its splendid decor. It's all because the CEO's daughter is with us, someone remarked, and everyone began praising Remy. She laughed bashfully, gently denying it. They dropped off their luggage at the hotel and had free time until the dinner banquet. Some went sightseeing, others shopping, and since the area was famous for hot springs, some said they'd enjoy a foot bath tour. Without any particular plans, Jaden wandered around the hotel area. The area around the hotel was surprisingly bustling with shops, so he could stroll around without getting bored. He ran into other employees along the way, so he wasn't completely alone and had a good time chatting with them. As night fell, everyone gathered at the venue, and the banquet began. As usual, the employees got drunk and rowdy. Even Remy, who hadn't attended before, was sitting far away but seemed to be enjoying the employee entertainment, looking slightly tipsy. The banquet, which started in the evening, quickly passed, and it was already past 1:00 a.m. Despite the late hour, the employees continued to perform and have fun. Jaden wasn't much of a drinker, so he was drinking slowly, but he started to feel a bit tipsy. Next to him was his boss, who also wasn't a strong drinker, and they were just chatting and eating. Feeling that he should call it a night, Jaden decided to return to his room. Well, boss, I think I'll head back to my room now. Excuse me, he said. His boss decided to do the same, and they left the banquet hall together. Since their rooms were on different floors, they parted ways at the elevator and returned to their respective rooms, feeling pleasantly tipsy. Jaden opened the door to his room, and to his surprise, someone had already grabbed the doorknob before him. What the? He exclaimed, shocked. The alcohol sobered him up instantly. He turned around to see a drunken Remy. Hey, it's mean to leave you behind, she said, walking into his room without permission. She immediately lay down on his bed, having lost her usual spot. Jaden sat on a small sofa nearby, wondering what to do. Remy, lying down, turned to face him, blushing and staring at him with drunken eyes. She looked a bit sleepy, so he couldn't quite tell what she was thinking. Remy, you might be mistaken, but this is my room. It's not yours, he said. What are you talking about? This bed is mine, Jaden. You sleep over there, she said, her voice slurring. She was acting like a difficult drunk. He couldn't believe how different she was from her usual self. Apparently, when Julia got drunk, she became quite the giggler. She'd been laughing non-stop for some unknown reason. Oh geez. Why do you always turn down my invitations, Jaden? She suddenly complained directly to him, after laughing for a while. Jaden felt like he was being dragged around and didn't know how to respond to her question. Should he tell her the truth or not? Even if he did, she probably wouldn't remember it while drunk. As he was mulling over these thoughts, she suddenly jumped up from the bed and started taking off her clothes. This room is so hot. I'm sweating. I'm going to take a bath, she said. Remy, wait. I told you this is my room, he said, flustered. Realizing he couldn't stop her, he decided to at least prevent her from undressing in front of him and lead her to the bathroom. You can't undress here. I'll take you to the bathroom, so do it there. Okay, he said, managing to guide her to the bathroom, where she nearly bumped her head into everything along the way. After closing the bathroom door, he heard the sounds of her clothes being tossed aside and the bathtub filling up with water. It seemed like she'd be okay. Thinking that, he went back to the sofa and decided to wait for her to come out, just in case. By the time 30 minutes had passed, Jaden was completely sober. He could now think clearly about how they ended up in this situation. He could hear her humming cheerfully from the bath. Another 30 minutes passed, and then all sounds from the bathroom ceased. Noticing this strange silence, he knocked on the bathroom door. Remy, are you okay? He asked. There was no response from her. He knocked again, but still there was only silence. A few seconds passed, and then he heard something hit the water surface, but soon everything went quiet again. He felt something was wrong, but since there was no response, he couldn't move away from the bathroom door. Did she fall asleep in the bath because of the alcohol? That thought suddenly crossed his mind. If that's the case, it's really dangerous. It's like a rescue mission. With that in mind, he forcefully opened the bathroom door and went inside. Remy, are you okay? He asked. When he looked into the bathroom, he saw her with the back of her head in the water, her face about to sink. She seemed to be in a deep sleep, so much so that she didn't notice when he entered the bathroom. Seeing that her nose was about to touch the water, he quickly moved her head to the edge of the tub to keep her breathing. It was just in time, as her face was barely submerged, and she resumed breathing normally. Relieved by this, he realized that he couldn't leave her like this and looked around the bathroom, wondering what to do first. First, he needed to wake her up. As he turned back to her, about to call her name, his eyes caught sight of something. It wasn't because she had a beautiful body that he was staring. Well, her beautiful body was indeed very captivating, but that wasn't the reason. As he stood there frozen and she let out a groan. Remy, wake up, he called out, a bit louder than usual. She sleepily opened her eyes and looked at him for a moment. She seemed not to recognize who she was looking at, but soon her consciousness became clear. Huh. Why is Jaden here? She asked, her tone more coherent than before, indicating she was no longer drunk. She began to grasp the situation gradually. Why are you in the bathroom, Jaden? Were you trying to peek at me? That's disgusting. I'm so disappointed in you, she screamed loud enough to be heard by the neighbors. Her voice made Jaden panic, but he tried to stay as calm and brief as possible. This is my room. You got drunk and came in on your own, then went to the bath. What then? It suddenly went quiet, so I got worried and sorry, I came in to check. Sure enough, your face was in the water, so I helped you, he said. At those words, her eyes widened in surprise. Then, glancing around the bathroom, she suddenly tensed up, noticing something different. She seemed to be gradually remembering what had happened earlier. Her face turned bright red. Oh no. I'm so sorry, she said. Having saved her life and taken a moment to relax, Jaden sat on the sofa, waiting for her to come out of the bathroom. After a while, she came out of the bathroom and apologized to him again. No, really. Did I say anything weird? She asked, not seeming to remember what she had said. But Jaden didn't think she had said anything particularly strange. Don't worry. You were your usual self, he said. That answer didn't seem to reassure her much, and she apologized deeply once more. I'm really embarrassed. I'm so sorry, she said. Although it was pleasing to the eye, Jaden had indeed seen something embarrassing for her. He remembered something he saw of hers earlier. He thought about telling her, but in that moment, he decided not to. Yeah, it's fine, really. It's okay. More importantly, can you get back to your room? He said, urging her to go back to her room. Okay, she said. And so that day ended in a somewhat awkward way. The next day, everyone enjoyed the last day of the company trip as if nothing had happened. Jaden, as usual, enjoyed sightseeing alone. And as the morning passed, he looked for a nearby restaurant for lunch on his phone. Then his phone rang. When he checked, it was Remy. He hesitated for a moment, but feeling somewhat guilty, he reluctantly answered. She was inviting him to lunch. Normally, he would have turned her down, but he wanted to apologize for yesterday, so he agreed. They met up and had lunch together. During lunch, they didn't touch on yesterday's events, only talking about how the trip had been or about work. Jaden was surprised at how naturally he was able to talk and enjoyed the conversation. After leaving the restaurant, it was still early, so they decided to go back to the hotel. As they started walking, she grabbed his sleeve and stopped him. "Hey, could you come to my room for a minute?" she asked, looking at him with a slightly red face and a troubled expression. Her expression was very cute, like a puppy about to cry. Jaden couldn't help feeling a little startled by her sudden behavior and expression, but he noticed her hand was shaking when he looked closely. Sensing something, he decided to follow her to her room as she asked. Entering the room nervously, he was directed by Juliato to sit on the sofa. Then, instead of sitting across from him, she sat down next to him, closing the distance. For some reason, Jaden was surprised and felt his heart race, but she didn't say a word. An awkward silence filled the room. "So, what did you think of my body?" she finally asked, her voice tense and trembling slightly. Jaden didn't know how to respond. She must be talking about what he had seen. It was beautiful. "I'm sorry for seeing it, even though we're not in a relationship," he said. Then she glared at him with an angry expression and said, "Stop lying about it being beautiful. Are you pitying me?" Jaden had seen a large scar on her chest, but he understood why she was angry. He also had a big scar on his face, so he could somewhat understand, but he really thought it was beautiful. "I'm not pitying you. If anything, I understand your feelings the most, right?" he said. Saying that, she suddenly started crying and began to talk about herself. Julia had a heart condition when she was young and couldn't do normal physical activities. Her father, who was the CEO, decided to have a major surgery performed on her to cure her heart condition. The scar on her chest was the remnant of that surgery. The surgery was successful, and her body gradually recovered to the same level as an average person. As she got older, she could lead a normal life. Although she had the title of CEO's daughter, she enjoyed her school life and daily life like any other person, and she was so beautiful. Of course, guys didn't leave her alone, and she even had a boyfriend. Her then boyfriend was particularly kind among the guys, and he understood and accepted that she had been weak as a child. She thought he would surely accept the scar too, but when things got intimate with her boyfriend, he saw the scar and immediately recoiled. "Oh, sorry, I can't handle that. Seeing it just kills the mood for me," he said, looking at her like she was a monster and pulling away. Of course, they broke up, and like Jaden, she also gave up on love. That experience made her believe that no one would ever accept the scar on her chest. Still, she kept believing and dated a few people during her school days, but every one of them was repulsed when they saw the scar and broke up with her. "It's really selfish, isn't it? But even though I know I won't be accepted, I keep getting into relationships, which is also messed up," she said. Moreover, her scar was not only unaccepted by boyfriends but also by her female friends during her school days. When she was supposed to go to the beach with her close group of girlfriends, she told them about the scar beforehand and showed it to them, but their reaction was not what she expected. It was cold. "Oh, seriously? That means guys won't hit on us, Remy. Can you wear a swimsuit that covers it? If you do, it's fine," they'd said, throwing heartless words at her like that. After that, they gradually became distant, and Julia stopped interacting with those friends. "But I'm the daughter of a wealthy CEO, so I have money. Some people like me for that reason," she said, her voice sounding somewhat resigned. "But one day, I couldn't leave the house anymore. I even dropped out of school. I couldn't trust anyone and was all alone. Then one day my dad said, 'There's someone like you with a scar who's working hard. Go see him for some life experience.' I didn't expect anything to change, but I went. And then I met you, Jaden. Unlike me, your scar on your temple couldn't be hidden, but you still blended in with everyone and did your job. Seeing that made me think I had to try too," she said. Hearing the truth, Jaden felt embarrassed about his suspicions of the CEO until now. The CEO didn't place her in their sales department to use her but to encourage her through her tough times. When Jaden looked at Remy, she was also looking at him. "You've always been saving me. Seeing you work hard with your facial scar made me want to keep trying and smile and face forward," she said, with her usual bright and beautiful smile. Seeing that expression, it felt like the fog inside him was clearing. The scar he had always despised had unknowingly saved her. "So that's what it was," he said. He gently and slowly touched the scar running from his temple to his eyebrow for the first time in his life. He felt grateful for the scar. I had no idea you felt that way, Julia said. Yeah, I never had the chance to tell you. I tried to invite you to lunch, but you always turn me down. So that's why you invited me to lunch, she said. Yeah. Well, there are other reasons too. But can I ask how you got that scar, Jaden, she asked. Oh, it was just a car accident. I've already talked it out with the other person, and it happened when I was a kid. But this scar never went away. I had a hard time with it, hated it. But what you said today made me think maybe it's not so bad, he said, giving a wry smile as he touched his scar. I can tell it must have been tough having a scar in such a visible place, even more than my own struggles. But you kept moving forward and came to work at my dad's company. I'm really grateful I got to meet you, Jaden. Thank you, she said. Hearing this made Jaden feel a bit embarrassed. When was the last time someone thanked him so sincerely? So, Julia said, her face turning a little red, and she hesitated. You said my body was beautiful, even if it was just a compliment. So isn't it about time you stopped rejecting my lunch invitations? She asked, her face turning bright red from her expression. Jaden sensed she might have feelings for him. Her eyes glistened as she looked at him. It wasn't just a compliment. I really think you're beautiful. I'm sorry I always turned you down because of the scar. I've kept my distance from women, thinking no relationship would last, even if I got a girlfriend. I always thought this scar would be the reason we'd break up, he confessed, sharing a similar worry to hers. She looked surprised but then smiled happily at his confession. Well, if we get together, wouldn't that solve our problems? She asked, her face even redder, tears filling her eyes. Jane was surprised by her suggestion, but he could tell she had gathered a lot of courage to say it. Yeah, you're right. Let's be together, he said. She suddenly jumped into his arms. I'm so happy. I'm looking forward to being with you, she said, her excitement making her press her body against his and hug him. Jaden tried to keep his composure and hugged her back, doing his best to stay calm. Yeah. Looking forward to being with you, Remy, he said. What, my name? I just went ahead and called you that, but it feels kind of strange, she said, responding with an even stronger hug than before. The next day, Jaden told everyone at work that Julie and he were dating. There were comments like, "That's an unexpected pair, and you guys look good together." Some of the male employees were a bit jealous that Julia was now with him, but they all congratulated them in the end. Of course, this news also reached her father, the company CEO. Jaden was called to his office that day, and he asked Jaden to take care of his daughter. His eyes met Jaden's directly, and he could tell he was serious, so Jaden straightened up. When Jaden told him he was truly in love with her, he smiled warmly. I'm sorry I couldn't transfer you to sales, he said, seeming to feel guilty about Jaden's job situation. Don't worry about it. Honestly, at first, I wondered why, but now I enjoy working as an assistant. I'm just grateful to work under you. Plus, it led me to meet Remy. There's nothing happier than that, Jaden said. I see. Thank you for saying that. No, I promised to make Julia happy, he said. Since they started dating, Julia and Jaden have been able to positively accept their own insecurities. Thanks to that change in their mindset, their circle of friends expanded, and by the time they had their wedding, many people celebrated with them. After successfully getting through the wedding, they both wore matching rings on their left ring fingers. Julia and Jaden sat side by side on a long sofa, reminiscing about when they first started dating. Time has flown by, hasn't it? Jaden said. Yeah, it really has, Julia replied. When Jaden said that, she reached for the scar on his face. Our scars may never fade, but my feelings for you will never disappear. Never, she said with a happy smile. Jaden couldn't help but smile too. He put his arm around her waist and pulled her close. Then he traced the scar on her chest through her clothes. I feel the same way. I'll always love you. Even now, he said, those words in his heart. Jaden was living a happy life with her.